been a while. I fought in the flyweight division for more than 4.5 years ago, so it was something new. But I didn't feel like Valentina was like the strongest opponent in my fighting career. Good traps, good takedowns, and she scored at cards. And it took a while for me to get out from the bottom position, because she was very clever and like using smart her hands to block me. But you can see a few bruises, but I didn't take that much damage as her last opponent from her ground and pound. But yeah, you know, I'm looking forward. It was first fight in the flyweight division, and right away fight with such a tough opponent with Valentina, and for the belt. I'm happy. I'm proud of myself. I broke Ronda Rousey's record of title fights. I'm very happy, and yeah, that's it. I must take some time off, watch the fight, and talk to my coaches, Dana, and decide what's going to be the next.
I wanted to ask you about Max and just where he rates. And, you know, Joe said an interesting thing in there. He said he might be the greatest featherweight of all time. And obviously Conor was there and other great fighters were there. Where do you think Max rates right now among the all-time greats?
It's impossible not to talk about him amongst the all-time great now. And yes, he possibly could be the greatest ever. But let's not forget about I already forgot about him. How about that? Let's not forget about Jose Aldo. Yeah, Jose Aldo. And but yeah, he's definitely in the discussion. This guy hasn't lost in 5 years. This fight was huge. It's one of the sickest fights I've ever seen. The chin on Ortega is insane, and what a fight.
Could you ever have imagined that he would have taken, I think he landed over 50% of his shots, and taken Ortega apart that one-sidedly? I mean, you know, he couldn't be stopped.
Well, I think there were a lot of questions coming into this fight. You know, obviously no questions about how good Max Holloway was, but he had a couple tough times making the weight. You know, we got him tested medically. We knew he was healthy. We knew he was safe. He went into this cut, seemed great through the whole thing, and obviously came in and performed tonight at another level. He looked unbelievable. Those were the questions I think that many people had about him tonight. How would he look after the weight cut and coming back, and, you know, the layoff and all that stuff? And wow.
My last question for you, Dana, is when you look at him, he's a guy that has improved so much, and he was good to begin with.
And he continues to improve every time he fights.
And he, not that he doesn't have submissions, but he's not one of those like Ortega is a great submission guy. He seems to be a stand-up fighter, and it's rare that you have a guy that's that good that doesn't have that other.
Well, he does.
I know he has it, but I'm saying he's not as dangerous the other way.
Because he's that good at submissions, he stays out of them, and he stays with, you know, with striking, because he's so much better than everybody when they're standing up. Why not?
Just one question. Holloway, he doesn't like talking about Conor very much, but they have a history. If he moves up to 155, does running that fight back, I know we got to wait for the NSAC thing to work out, but does running that fight back make sense to you?
Yeah, there's a lot of fights for him at that weight. You know, I think everybody in the top 5 is an interesting, exciting fight for Holloway. So that's why I say that I think there's bigger and better things for him at 55 pounds.
faced with Nico Montana. How's it feel now to come here and become a champion at UFC 231?
I was training so long for this moment. I training hard for this moment, and I'm very happy to get this belt. I'm very happy that because for me it's not just meaning the belt of UFC. It's meaning all my hard work that I was doing in martial arts, all my sacrifice for my sport, what I love so much, and this is reflecting in this belt.
And last question, how impressed was a great victory, but how impressed were you with Joanna's performance too as well?
It was everything that I was expecting from Joanna. I knew it will be good fight, it will be tough fight, because she's tough opponent. She's not the one who give up easily, no. And I would say that I'm happy to get this belt from this kind of fights, when you are facing real opponent, not just like any opponent, because when you get it from the real fight, only this way you can prove that you are real champion.
Hi, Valentina over here. How did this compare to your fights against Joanna in the past? I know it was a while ago, but you guys fought many times. How is tonight different or the same?
It's of course a little bit different, because everything that we have to pass through all this week, like all this pressure, not about only the fight, but media, and every day to do your duty, and not to lose your energy for the fight between all these days, what you have to do with like all this stuff. It's of course it's different. And the atmosphere, the organization where we was fighting this night, of course it's like something much bigger. But we did our fight in best Muay Thai promotion. Now we are doing in best MMA promotion.
What do you want to say about that main event? So Max Holloway defeats Brian Ortega at 5 minutes of the 4th round. So they go to full 4 rounds, and in between rounds before the onset of the 5th, Brian Ortega's, the doctor, I believe, stopped it actually. His corner should have stopped it. I'm a little surprised that they didn't, because he was being put in a bad place, and he's young enough where an additional 5 minutes would have been a horrendous beating for him. But be that as it may, Max Holloway, Jesus Christ, man, what do you want to say about this guy? Let's talk about every element of his win that we can, starting with the context of it. Hilarious. Someone marked it as a TKO loss on Wikipedia, but he lost to Conor McGregor in 2013, right? That was back in August of 2013. Since then, he beat Will Chope, Andre Fili, Clay Collard, Akira Corsani, Cole Miller, Cub Swanson, Charles Oliveira, Jeremy Stevens, Ricardo Lamas, Anthony Pettis, Jose Aldo twice, and now Brian Ortega. That is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 fight win streaks. Folks, I don't give a damn what you're doing inside the Ultimate Fighting Championship. A 13 fight win streak is exceedingly rare. To do it at the championship level for the last 1, 2, 3, 4 fights is absurd. Totally absurd. We're talking about, they keep calling him the greatest featherweight of all time. I don't know if he's the greatest featherweight of all time, because to be that, you have to kind of have a larger body of work. But Jesus, man, that is an incredible body of work. But God, he was just setting him on fire. He was finding a way to keep him at the end of his punches, switching angles, throwing punches in combinations, double jabbing and then throwing a straight, jabbing, hooking, turning, ducking under a punch, pivoting, throwing, and then there was just this volume and onslaught, and Brian Ortega had nowhere to go. He had a nice rally, I think, in that 3rd round, nearly taking the back for a moment, although not really. I won't say getting close in the takedowns, but threatening enough with them that Max had to be mindful of his P's and Q's, landing some hard shots, as I mentioned before. But first of all the questions about Max Holloway, like, I'm a little hesitant to say that they've been completely answered, because you never know if they might materialize again. They kind of materialized out of thin air as far as we can tell, right? So you're like, well, will they come back? But at the same time, you're like, Jesus Christ, man.